Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the balanced assessment system in social studies. My name is Dusty Shockley with the Department of Education. I'm the Education Associate for Social Studies, Curriculum and Assessment. And I'm here today to talk to you about a balanced assessment system. So, what is a balanced assessment system? In 2015, when the Every Student Succeeds Act was established, it emphasized the need for a balanced assessment system. For the purposes of this session, we're defining a balanced assessment system, or BAS, as a set of interconnected assessments that meets the needs of all educational stakeholders for the common purpose of improving education. Balanced assessment systems provide accurate and timely information about student achievement and learning to individual students, teachers, school and district administrators, as well as local, state, and federal policymakers. More importantly, they encourage and support learning by helping students and teachers see that their continued efforts will result in success. When you utilize accurate day-to-day classroom assessments, added with quality curriculum and instructional decisions, along with a balance of high-quality standardized tests, you now have a balanced assessment system that can effectively promote student learning. This graphic shows the balanced assessment system model for the state of Delaware. Notice each assessment type is color-coded for clarity on how each is integrated. Formative assessments, the purple strand, are the most used resource and are ongoing all year long. They're used daily for a learning partnership between the student and teacher and have only two distinct purposes: checking for understanding in real time and monitoring instructional effectiveness. Benchmark assessments are indicated in green and occur at multiple points throughout the year and are used for classroom and district levels. They're used to monitor instructional effectiveness, predict future performance, measure students' learning and growth, and lastly, to make decisions about curriculum programs. Interim assessments, shown in blue, are typically given by the school district 2 to 3 times a year. Interim assessments predict future performance, measure students' learning and growth, and help make decisions about curriculum programs. The last item, shown in orange, is statewide assessments that are given only once a year, and though used at the school and district level, are primarily for stakeholders at the district and state level. Statewide assessments are used to predict future performance, measure students' learning and growth, make decisions about curriculum programs, and fulfill accountability requirements. As mentioned previously in this model, formative and benchmark assessments are assessments for learning, whereas interims, summatives, including state testing, are assessments of learning. Now we're going to talk about the types of assessments. Formative assessment is defined as a multi-step interactive process in which students and teachers engage in instructional activities, gather evidence of learning, and use feedback to adjust teaching and improve learning in real time. These are ongoing, daily activities used by teachers to focus lesson plans and individual student needs. Formative assessments are administered by teachers only for the explicit purpose of diagnosing where students are in their learning and where gaps in knowledge and understanding exist. They're small scale and minute by minute to provide immediate feedback. They are usually not graded. The next type of assessments are benchmark and interim assessments. Benchmark assessments are for recently taught material, such as unit or a chapter or a semester, for grades, in order to monitor progress toward learning goals. Test content follows district, school, or classroom curriculum pacing. Interim assessments are general achievement measures to monitor progress toward end-of-year goals and identify students or curricular areas needing additional attention. The content covers and standards for an instructional period. Interims are very similar to benchmark, though interims are used less frequently, 2 to 3 times a year, and administered by a school district, and benchmark testing occurs more frequently and are given by classroom teachers and are district-wide. These assessments are designed to serve instructional purposes that should provide results that enable educators to adapt curriculum or better meet student needs. Now let's discuss the definition of a summative assessment, which is any type of assessment that occurs after instruction to document achievement. It's also a measure of a student's proficiency in a subject against state standards. Summatives are an assessment of learning rather than for learning. They're used for the purpose of accountability for state and federal requirements. Summative assessments in the classroom are intended to check what students know and can do that they've acquired over a long period of time and not based on instruction that just took place. These assessments are not used for grading purposes, although they are scaled at the school, district, and state level. Summative assessments may be used for accountability, but are also a great source of information for educators in understanding their student performance to help guide instruction. At the Delaware Department of Education, within each of the accountability assessments, we have a BAS model for the teaching and learning process to help assist all stakeholders in supporting student learning and helping students promote their own growth. The models are interactive with links embedded for help with further understanding. Each model follows a color-coded system for formative, interim, and summative assessments. So this next slide shows the Social Studies Balanced Assessment System model. In the yellow formative block, the Delaware Recommended Curriculum and Instructional Resources for grades to K-12 are indicated along with a link to the Delaware Social Studies standards. In the recommended curriculum, you'll find lesson plans for all grade levels. You can access these materials by joining the Schoology group with the access code listed at the bottom of the slide. Once in the group under the Resources tab, you'll find standards and clarifications and grade level units from K-12, and I'll show you a slide that shows what that Resources tab looks like in a moment. As we shift into the green interim block, there are aligned assessments available for statewide use. You can join the Social Studies Coalition Assessment Bank, Schoology group. The educator access code is at the bottom of the slide in the middle. You'll find assessments for grades K-12 that follow content standards. These assessments are designed to provide actionable feedback during the school year to monitor students' progress. The blue summative block explains that this summative assessment, DeSSA Social Studies, is not given every year, but at the end of grades 4, 7, and 11. These assessments were developed with teacher review and input and also provide instructional feedback. The assessment is document and task-based. There are practice tests available. There's a link for the test at the bottom of the summative box that will allow students to get a feel for the design of the assessment and the expectations prior to the actual summative being given. So, going back to the formative section, this is a slide that shows the Delaware Recommended Curriculum Schoology group. The group code is at the top. Any teacher can access this. The instructional resources within the recommended curriculum contain formative assessments. Some examples of formative assessments that you can use within this are questioning, think, pair, share, graphic organizers, exit tickets, hold-up cards. What we have done in the recommended curriculum Schoology group is created folders for each grade cluster in order for you to access instructional resources. So you can see on the right side the standards and clarifications and folders for instructional resources in K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. And so this is one small sample of an instructional resource that can be found within the Delaware Recommended Curriculum. This is from a grade 4 unit, Branches of Government. It's a check for understanding. How might branches of the U.S. government work together to meet their responsibilities? Support your answer with an example. So you would want students to respond with a valid explanation and an accurate and relevant example. It's open-ended, so there are different types of things that students might be able to provide. What you're looking for is that the branches of the U.S. government work together to meet their responsibilities. So this gets to the interaction of the legislative, judicial, and executive branches. So some examples of benchmark and interim assessments now. End of unit chapter tests or quizzes, essays, projects, and presentations. They may be teacher or commercially developed and more standardized. When you use benchmark or interim assessments, you should be clear on why the assessment is being used, what the goals are, the criteria that will be met, as well as how the information may be used. Benchmark assessments such as end-of-unit chapter tests will monitor the effectiveness of instruction, possibly predict future performance, as well as measure students' learning and growth. It can help you make decisions about programs being used. It's an assessment for learning, where an interim assessment will be used more for predicting future performance by measuring students' learning and growth to make decisions about program use, and is an assessment of learning. So the interim assessments or benchmark assessments that can be created in social studies come from the Social Studies Assessment Item Bank. The Schoology group code is up in the upper left corner. These items can be used locally to create interim assessments or benchmark assessments. There are nearly 800 items in the bank that can be used to evaluate student progress. So the slide on the right column shows a sample from geography, grade 4. These are item clusters that a teacher could click on, and after instruction in one of these standards, they could use these items to help measure student progress. And now the summative. The summative was given operationally this first year. State test given in grades 4, 7, and 11. There is a student training test available to familiarize students with the format of the test and online tools. The link is on this slide. It's also on the Balanced Assessment System model. So a unique feature of the DeSSA Social Studies is it uses sets of complex informational text, primary and secondary historical sources, photos, charts, tables, graphs, and more. There will be economic, civic, geographic, and historical data that students will have to think with. What students will have to do with those sources is read the complex informational text, use evidence to make and defend their responses, write clearly, show knowledge of technical and academic vocabulary, make connections across content, and demonstrate research and inquiry skills from multiple sources and data sets. So this slide is an example from the practice training test. This is grade 4 again. So this is a geography item set. You can see there are 4 sources in the upper left side. Source 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are tabs that the student may click on. There's an introductory statement. This map shows possible routes between Delaware and Los Angeles, California. Routes is underlined because it is a word that is glossed. So if a student clicks on that, there will be a definition provided for the word route. And then there's a map with a key. On the right side will be the item. The students are directed to use source 1 to answer this question. Source 1 shows 3 possible routes for travel between Delaware and Los Angeles, California. Each city is along a different route, and students are asked to drag each city to the correct route. So they match the city with the route that it is on. This directly correlates to Geography Standard 1 mental mapping for grade 4. So to review our definition of a balanced assessment system, it's the interconnected assessments that are used in the state of Delaware and how they're implemented to meet the needs of educational stakeholders to best improve educational practices. The differences between assessment types within a balanced assessment system. Formative assessments are designed to inform teaching and learning by providing specific, immediate, and actionable feedback through a process of continually gathering evidence of student learning. They're student and classroom centered, and they answer the question of what comes next. Interim and benchmark assessments monitor student progress toward longer-term goals by providing multiple data points across time through assessments administered at specific intervals during the academic year. These are classroom, school, and district-centered. They also answer the questions, what progress are students making, and is the program working? Summative assessments, such as those for Delaware in social studies, are designed to evaluate learning relative to specific learning standards by providing an overall description of student learning through statewide district or classroom standardized assessments. They answer the question, to what extent did our students meet the learning standards over time? We hope by using the state of Delaware's overall balanced assessment system model and each of the content area models that you now have a greater understanding of the different assessment types that help to support student learning and allow students to promote their own growth. So this next slide shows it shows really all of the trainings that we're providing in the Balanced Assessment Series. They begin as live webinars such as this one today. Once all the webinars are complete, they'll be recorded and bundled to become a content-specific course in Schoology. So in social studies, the first one today was on our Balanced Assessment System model as an overview. The next one will be on reporting and data literacy. That'll be held on January 10th We will have results from the last operational test in social studies, and I'll use that to show what kind of reporting that schools and districts can get. And finally, later in January, we'll connect that assessment to curriculum and instruction. And so this next slide continues with the purposes of the models. In reporting and data literacy, the purpose of the second model is to provide you with an understanding of the types of reports that are available. This will be new for us in social studies because it is the first operational test, and we'll talk about how to use and communicate the data. In the third one, connecting assessment to curriculum and instruction, will provide participants with how assessment connects to curriculum and instruction, because all three need to work in tandem to increase student learning. So the focus of this model is the what's next after data is collected. So additional information, we have two new Schoology courses to help support LEAs. One is on balanced assessment systems. It will provide an overview of all of these modules. They can be found in Schoology with the course number and section number available there, and also fundamentals of assessment literacy. So those two self-paced Schoology courses that any educator in Delaware can take. If you'd like to contact any of us in the Office of Assessment, these are our email addresses. You can contact me in social studies at preston.shockley@doe.k12.de.us. So thank you for joining us today.